create international opinion, the street opinion. I wouldn't say international opinion already there. Media is supporting the Americans. Media is supporting anti-terrorist action everywhere. But you have to have street support in the Middle East, in the Muslim countries. 2 billion people have to be mobilized onto your sites. And that could only be possible, I think, if we involve United Nations in the operation in a sort of coalition to take action against Osama or Bin Laden, if Osama and Bin Taliban, if there is need to be.
Wajid Shamsul Hassan in London, the former Pakistani High Commissioner to Britain. Thank you so much for being with us. Well, the attacks in the U.S. continue to elicit strong reactions around the world. For more on that part of the story, we're joined by CNN's Liz George in London. Liz.
Thank you, Zain. Australia and the US have applied their mutual defence treaty, and Australia will join the list of countries aiding the investigation. A statement released by the White House reads in part, "Although our alliance with Australia was crafted under very different circumstances than exist now, the events of September the 11th, 2001 are a powerful reminder that the alliance and our shared commitments are no less valid today. Australia shares our assessment of the gravity of the situation and is resolute in its commitment to work with the United States and all freedom-loving people to combat international terrorism." Senior US officials say they've asked moderate Arab states to prevent wealthy Muslims from sending money to terrorist groups as the US seeks Middle Eastern support for any campaign against the Taliban or Osama bin Laden. Bahrain's foreign minister says he remains confident about relations with Washington.
It shouldn't affect American-Arab relation at all, because we stand as a friend, we've been cooperating, and we are going to cooperate to arrest and punish those people, and this doesn't represent the Arab world at all. The Arab world expressed its views. The Arab world showed his sadness on this catastrophe. So really, it shouldn't affect this relation, only and make it stronger in the future.
It's becoming an anxious time for many Arab Americans and Muslims in the United States, many of whom are adding their voices to the national chorus. Muslims have been gathering in mosques and community centres offering prayers and raising money for victims. However, some, including many Afghans, worry about becoming targets for Americans' anger. Rusty Dornin has the story from California.
Arif Armaz sold every American flag in his store in Fremont, California, a source of pride for him right now. Armaz fled Afghanistan when the Soviets invaded. He believes his native land is being unjustly blamed for terrorism the U.S. increasingly believes was the work of a man from Saudi Arabia.
No, I don't believe it is Afghani people. It's just this tourism, Osama bin Laden.
Others came here when the Taliban regime took over. Some say the world turned its back on Afghanistan when that happened, and that isolation allowed the regime to harbor Osama bin Laden.
This terrorist group that is terrorizing the world has been torturing and victimizing, massacring our people in Afghanistan. We have asked numerous times for international help, and we got none.
Mohammed Kamosh worries that Afghanis here will be blamed for the Taliban's actions. The day of the attacks, someone threw a rock at his storefront.
Maybe something happened to us, something like my kids, they go to school, they are under stress. People look at them, that he's Afghan, you guys are doing that.
Friday, a holy day for Muslims. This Friday, a feeling of vulnerability. Outside the only Afghan mosque is extra security and local police patrols. While the threats have been relatively minor, there is uncertainty and unease among the Afghan community. Afghani businesses line the streets in downtown Fremont. Many here say those left in Afghanistan are for the most part the poor, brutalized by the war with the Soviets and now the repressive policies of the Taliban. Afghans here fear the talk of war.
The innocent people get killed. They should do something. They should talk with the Taliban to get that guy, you know. They shouldn't kill these people, the innocent people.
People here worry that revenge for Tuesday's attack may mean an all-out strike against a nation they feel has suffered enough. Rusty Dornan, CNN, Fremont, California.
In Iran, where the United States has long been considered the enemy, an unprecedented show of sympathy. 60,000 spectators and soccer players observed a minute of silence at the Tehran Soccer Stadium before a World Cup qualifying match. Iranian leaders have strongly condemned Tuesday's attacks, a gesture a US State Department official has said Washington would like to build on in the future. People from around the world were killed in the attacks in Europe, Africa and Asia. Thousands of people attend services in memory of those who died on Tuesday. Let's take a look.
Like a torch, like a beacon, even as we mourn and grieve. For if we are steadfast, we know that no darkness, no evil can ever extinguish that beacon of hope.
That's a look at how the world is reacting. Now back to Zain at CNN Center.
Thanks, Liz. Well, Wall Street's planning to open for business on Monday. The New York Stock Exchange tolled its opening bell on Friday. It rang not to start a day of trading, but in remembrance. NASDAQ and the exchange have been closed since Tuesday and the longest shutdown since World War I. And some analysts say the attacks could push an already weakened economy into recession.
What we perhaps forget in all this is that the American economy, large though it is roughly 2/3 consumer spending. The consumers, certainly from our point of view over here and in other world markets, consumers have been the spenders of last resort. We're now asking them to sort of gird up their loins after this to go at it again. I think that's possibly a very tall order, and I would suspect anyway for perhaps this quarter and the next quarter that the American economy will skate into recession.
Tuesday's attacks have led three of America's largest companies to issue profit warnings. General Electric says its insurance business expects claims of some $600 million as a result of the attacks. Another insurance company, MetLife, says it stands to lose between $250 and $300 million. However, it says it'll do everything possible to pay claims promptly. And carmaker Ford reports that it'll cut third quarter production by some 110,000 vehicles. That's because transport problems have held up delivery of components.
And in remarks that are sure to be closely watched, the oil minister of the United Arab Emirates says that OPEC will act immediately if oil prices rise above what he called an acceptable level. Obaid bin Sarif al-Nasseri pledges that the oil cartel will take the necessary measures to restrain any price rise above $30 a barrel.
The loss of the World Trade Center wipes out a lot of office space, and that means companies already coping with human losses have to scramble for new places to reopen for business. Peter Viles reports.
I think what we could simply do there is thinking if we have the space is just put two people in the same room temporarily.
Well, I think in a cubicle.
In a cubicle, yeah.
CEOs do not typically worry about who shares a cubicle, but these are not typical times. This is the old American Express headquarters, structurally sound but damaged. Ken Chenault is moving 5,000 workers, some to this new headquarters in Jersey City, others into two larger leased spaces in the Jersey suburbs.
Fortunately, all of our core operations and processing are outside of our New York headquarters building all around the world, so we have had virtually no interruption of service for any of our businesses across American Express.
15.5 million square feet of office space was destroyed, another 12 million damaged, meaning the city's businesses are now looking for 27 million square feet of space. American Express has already located nearly 1 million square feet for itself. When you include suburban office space, metropolitan New York has 46 million square feet of vacant space available. The problem is finding enough large spaces to replace what has been lost.
It is a game of musical chairs right now, where the major companies are out really in a frenzy looking for the larger blocks of space. And commitments are already being made as we speak. We will be essentially out of large blocks of space by next week.
In the weeks ahead, this area will be known as the new and temporary world headquarters of American Express. Today it has a much more important designation. It is a staging area for supplies to be ferried across the Hudson River to those thousands of rescue workers who are still working in Lower Manhattan. Peter Vile, CNN, Jersey City, New Jersey.
He wasn't looking at office space. He was looking at office space that is now gone. President Bush getting a first-hand look Friday at the site in Lower Manhattan, now known as Ground Zero. Amid the rubble of the Twin Towers, Mr. Bush spoke to rescue workers who responded with patriotic fervor.
Sorry, thank you all.
Sorry, go ahead, Mo.
What's a boom? Go ahead, got it.
I want you all to know it can't go any louder. I want you all to know that America today is on bended knee in prayer for the people whose lives were lost here, for the workers who work here, for the families who mourn. This nation stands with the good people of New York City and New Jersey and Connecticut as we mourn the loss of thousands of our citizens. I can hear you. I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon. The nation sends its love
Harry, by pushing
and compassion
sorry.
to everybody who is here.
Cross the line on that one.
Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for making the nation proud. And may God bless America.
All right, let's get back a little bit, folks. Give him some room.
As if from the rubble, more stories of bravery and compassion continue to emerge. On Friday, Larry King spoke to U.S. Solicitor General Ted Olson about the loss of his wife, Barbara. She was aboard the plane that crashed into the Pentagon and made 2 calls to her husband.
I think she must have been partially in shock from the fact that she was on a hijacked plane. She absorbed the information. We then both reassured one another this plane was still up in the air, this plane was still flying, and this was going to come out okay. I told her it's going to come out okay. She told me it was going to come out okay. She said, "I love you."
He says at one point, Barbara asked him what she should tell the pilot of the doomed plane to do. Olson was a 45-year-old lawyer who often appeared on CNN as a conservative commentator. Larry King also spoke to Michael Hingson, a blind man who worked on the 78th floor of the first World Trade Center tower that was hit. He paid tribute to his guide dog, Roselle, for saving his life.
She did a tremendous job. She's from Guide Dogs for the Blind, which is one of the larger schools in the country that trains these dogs. They do an incredible job of selecting the animals, doing the best that they can to acclimatize them to a lot of adverse conditions. This clearly can't be one of them, but she knows how to cope with noises. She knows how to cope with a lot of different stressful things. So she played guide down the stairs.
Hingson and his dog escaped through the lobby and took shelter in a subway just as the building started to collapse.
That's amazing, Jonathan. Well, the enormity of Tuesday's attacks on New York often obscure the individual tolls taken on that day. Let's now take a moment to look at 7 lives tragically cut short.
Lost on United Flight 175 from Boston, headed to Los Angeles. Ace Bailey, a Stanley Cup champion, the director of pro scouting for the LA Kings. It would have been his 32nd season working in the NHL. Mark Bavis was flying with him, a young King scout who played hockey for Boston University, where his twin brother is now assistant coach. Lisa Frost was a star student, graduating first in her class from Boston University this year. She was headed to see her parents, Tom and Melanie, and getting ready to start a new job next week in San Francisco. Sean Nassani and his girlfriend, Lynn Goodchild, took off for a vacation in Hawaii. They were active and athletic. He, especially, loved to run and ski. Ronald Gamboa managed a Gap store in Santa Monica. He and his longtime partner, Daniel Brandhorst, were headed back to California. With them, the son they had adopted together, David Brandhorst. United Airlines 175 crashed into the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001 at 9:03 a.m. Eastern Time.
As Americans mourn, they unite in many ways. CNN's Michael McManus now with how people are pulling together in different cities.
Americans are pulling together, and they're showing their resolve with American flags. In fact, manufacturers can't keep up with the orders. In Washington, Congress passes a flag resolution.
Let each of us, as an aroused citizen of this democracy, show our solidarity as a nation by flying the stars and stripes from every flagpole, every home, and every business, school in this great country.
Advice a small California town heeds.
It's comforting to know that people are all trying to pull together through this time of crisis.
In Oklahoma, it's teddy bears that provide comfort. The stuffed animals collected will be sent to victims' families and rescue workers in New York and Washington. In Los Angeles, consolation in the warm glow of a candle. Just one of the countless vigils all across the U.S. as people express spirit and resolve during a difficult time. Michael McManus, CNN.
Los Angeles, from Miami to Minnesota, from Burbank to Boston, the people of the U.S. have been lighting candles to remember those who perished. Let's take a glimpse now at a few of those vigils.
God bless America.
I think this is just one sign of the unity and the solidarity. And it's nice to know that what you feel, the pain and the hurt, is shared by a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are trying to make some good out of this. So I think it's important to share that with everybody.
Young and old and people of all persuasions, and it's fantastic to see that we all have one thing in common, that we love this country.
Really horrible, this whole situation. I think it was a big shock to everyone, and I think everyone was stunned at first, and I think we're all doing the best we can.
Liberating
think it's absolutely amazing that the government is taking such a unified stance towards all of this. I mean, to see Mayor Giuliani, Hillary Clinton, and Governor Pataki all standing side by side in unity, I truly feel that they and President Bush are giving this city a strength that it has never seen before.
Weather forecasters say conditions in New York will improve today, giving a boost to rescue efforts. Work was hampered by rain on Friday. For the latest from New York, we go to Garrick Utley. Garrick.
Good morning from New York, Zane. But how do you give a boost to how people are feeling here? Given what happened in New York City this week, it's not surprising that on Friday you didn't hear the old refrain, TGIF, thank God it's Friday, because simply on this weekend, Saturday morning, there's no way to really decompress. How do you escape from the realities of this week? Still, people will try to seek some kind of weekend relief. Here's our Beth Nissen.
For most New Yorkers, it doesn't seem much like the start of a weekend. Still, in a week when so many people who went to work on Tuesday never came home, it was good to see the work week end. Many headed out of town for hastily arranged family gatherings. Jason Spiewak was taking Amtrak to his parents' home in Pennsylvania.
I've just been stirred up all week by the goings on, and I just want to be close to family and friends.
Bree McCallop was going home to Florida.
I live by myself, and I really just don't want to be here right now. I just don't feel comfortable being here. I don't feel safe.
Almost everyone understood the desire to get away from the unrelenting anguish and distress and fear, to read about and think about something else, anything else.
You'd almost want the new fall season on TV because, it's an escape. Everywhere you look is just inundated with the pictures that you've seen over and over and over, and it's 24/7. And you have to switch to something like Cartoon Network just to escape from it.
In Times Square, hundreds of people lined up in the rain to buy half-price tickets to Broadway shows. Patricia McClellan was trying to get tickets to Beauty and the Beast for her 2 school-aged children.
Trying to pick up their spirits and get them together and get them away from viewing everything that they've been looking at for the last week.
After 4 days of almost unbearable real-life drama, many wanted to see a stage story with a clear resolution, a happy ending.
The theater provides for us a little bit of release, a little bit of relief from what's going on. We can't ever forget what's gone on here in New York with the great tragedy, but it gives us a little bit of a mental vacation.
Those who went to New York City movie theaters seemed in search of the same thing.
It's quite ironic that I'm choosing to go to the movies for 2 hours, considering this is like being in a movie. It's surreal. It's like a Hollywood horror film, and yet I'm looking for a film to kind of just take my mind away from it,
Legions of others just wanted to stay home. Some rented half a dozen videos.
I've never rented a movie before. I just got a membership today because I plan on staying in the house all weekend. I'm not going to do anything because of the incident.
Because of that horrible incident, NFL and college football games, a usual weekend release for thousands of sports-mad New Yorkers, were canceled.
I wish I had the distraction to the release of the football season, but I understand as playing football as myself, the tension of what happened at the World Trade Center, I wouldn't want to play if I was a player.
Not everyone wanted distraction. Some wanted a few hours of quiet to try to cope with the stun and the sorrow.
A lot of people died, and it broke my heart. It literally broke my heart. And I feel like crying right now.
Millions of New Yorkers still need comforting. Many said they plan to attend religious services this weekend, go to temple tonight, Mass tomorrow, or church on Sunday. The Marble Collegiate Church on Fifth Avenue has added a second service Sunday to accommodate what Senior Minister Arthur Caliandro expects will be standing room crowds.
I think what people are looking for is sanctuary, a place to be where they're safe emotionally and physically, but also that we're spiritually.
But feeling safe again seems such a long way off for most New Yorkers. So much loss still uncounted. And for most people, nothing they can do except try their best to make it through tomorrow and the next day and a long succession of days after. Beth Nissen, CNN, New York.
Of course, one of the most favorite or popular weekend escapes is to go to the movie. And in the movie houses, the films having the toughest time attracting audiences probably this weekend will be those action films filled with exploding cars and buildings. New Yorkers have had enough of that so far this week. Zane?
Garrick, New Yorkers trying to go back to normal, as it were. Will New York ever go back to what it once was?
Well, of course it will. It hasn't really left that. This has been an exceptional week and may go on for another week or so. There are two parts to that, two answers to that question. One is going to be the physical. How do you rebuild? And already there are people talking about what goes up in the place of the World Trade Center. It will be redeveloped, probably not with two soaring skyscrapers. There will be a lower profile. And as far as the emotional health of the city, it'll come back. Next week the stock market will be open, the ball games, the NFL will be playing the following weekend. It'll be painful, but the city comes back. Zane?
What's been most amazing to a lot of people, Garrick, is the way New Yorkers have pulled together to stand together in this moment of tragedy. What have people been saying to you about that?
Well, everybody says, talks to everybody else. This city is different from many other American communities in that it's so densely packed. That's why people can often be very irritated and irritating, because you can't escape the other person. We live in dormitories called apartment buildings, obviously. And because of that, we know we have this very intense contact. What people were really saying was this sense of community that this week, more than I've ever experienced, I've lived here for 20 years, this big city of 7 million people plus became a very small community of 7 million people plus. That's quite an achievement. The sad thing, of course, is what brought it about, the disaster on Tuesday.
Garrick Utley in New York, thank you so much. Jonathan?
Those of us at a distance from New York, people around the world who have watched all of this unfold from a safe distance, are struck with the images, the final pictures that they had of all of this destruction. Some people had something more. They had final words. Delma Guterres reports.
September 11th, American Airlines Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower. Jill Gartenberg's husband is inside.
Stay tuned to CNN for more coverage of our America's New War. I'm Zane Burgee.
And I'm Jonathan Mann. Thanks for being with us.
Where is it?
I'm Jonathan Mann at the CNN Center. Our coverage of America's New War continues.
And I'm Zane Burgee at the CNN Center. You're looking now at live pictures of lower Manhattan, where the rescue operation is underway.
And this is the Pentagon now. You can see still the site of the crash. The black boxes have been recovered from the Pentagon, as they have been also from the crash site in Pennsylvania, just part of the clues, numbering in the thousands, that investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board and the FBI are trying to pursue.
Rescue workers, as we saw in the picture there, are working around the clock, digging through mountains of destruction. There's been rainy weather that's been hampering operations, but it appears as though the weather will improve, and hopefully it will create a better environment to do that. But Jonathan, no survivors found in the last couple of days. Optimism is waning, but there are those families of victims that are hoping that something will come out of it.
The rescue effort has been stymied, the realization setting in that perhaps there will be no rescue, but there is still the ongoing investigation. CNN's Mike Betcher brings us the latest on that.
4,000 special agents chasing 36,000 leads and circulating to 18,000 law enforcement agencies a growing list of people they want to question.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation has also forwarded a list of more than 100 names to numerous law enforcement organizations. These are the names of individuals the FBI would like to talk to, because we believe they may have information that could be helpful to the investigation.
Another FBI list, this one made public, the 19 men who the FBI says were the hijackers of the 4 aircraft. 7 of the men were pilots, according to CNN terrorism analyst Peter Bergen. 13 of them have recognizable Saudi tribal names from the west and southwest.